Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Carlin The Morning, with me, Carlin Coin, and it's currently the morning. So, we're talking today about the top news item out there, the DACA Dem deal with Trump. Trump has his base somewhat confused right now. Not all of his base, but definitely the hardcore, strict, principled people like Ann Coulter are flipping out. Ann Coulter's been fun because she was like the first and the most ardent Trump supporter. He based parts of his campaign on the one book she had about illegals and the talking points and shit there, the early campaign. And then she wrote a book just like, Trump is perfect. And right as that was coming out, he started moderating, coming to the left on a lot of this stuff. And I believe that Trump will continue coming to the left on a lot of this shit. And as this is, he has been. Every time he does so, Ann Coulter freaks out. She did tweet about impeaching him now. Who doesn't want to impeach Trump? Not like a serious accusation, but she is just really pissed with the guy. So, what this deal is the Dreamers. He said he will phase it out in 6 months, so those guys will no longer be legally allowed in this country if Congress does not pass a law in the meantime. And now it sounds like he made a deal with the Democrats to pass such a law. And it's tied to increased funding for border security, while not specifically linked to a wall. So I enjoy this because it's complicated as fuck. Every different person has a different take on this right now. You see, the easiest one to understand is the Ann Coulters and whatnot. Just like, no, he said he would do this, now he's not doing that. Barg, he should do the thing he said he would do. And then there are some on the left are gloating. Like, haha, fuck you Trump supporters. You guys are such rubes, you're such idiots, you bought this con man, he's just a piece of shit. Well, not mentioning that, this is good for us. We got something, it's like, oh, yes. Thank God those Dreamers are gonna be able to stay here. They're just like, yeah, fuck you Trump rubes. So that's part of it. And then there are sort of more moderate Republican types who are trying to stand on shifting grounds, They don't know exactly where the president's going to go next, but they're not trying to just totally go to attack him for this. It's a bit of a perplexing situation. I think what's going on is Trump's always meant to moderate. That, he had always, just in his campaign, he started out super extreme and then moderated as it made political sense to do so. I think that's going to be his plan throughout certainly the first term, so that by the time the election comes around, he's going to have a pretty strong, more centrist base. And the really extreme Republicans who are strong on border security and killing Obamacare, all of those type of people, they're not going to vote Democrat. He might have a slightly smaller turnout, but I don't think he's that much of a risk of alienating his base with the stuff he's doing right now. So this has been his plan the whole time. And this is one step along that way. But it's just fun to see people thrown for a whirl on this one. I guess I do get the best part is just the people on the left who seem angry at Trump for making this deal. There are some that are, it's sort of lighthearted, haha, look at this, Trump, stupid supporters. But there's some people that are like, oh my god, this is just another sign that he's a madman and a liar and a con artist. This is more evidence for impeachment. Just because they're so deeply committed against President Trump, even while they're saying he's doing this thing that I agree with, they're saying it's evidence that this guy's bad, that he's a bad president. So that is, has a little bit of cognitive dissonance built into that. These people are just, like, half of their identity now is opposition to Trump. There's someone who's going to resist. There's someone who's not going to stand by and let the Nazis come and start murdering all of everybody. But now, he's been in there for 9 months or whatever. I haven't seen any concentration camps being built yet. So the fact that he is this evil dictatorial figure who's going to come in and just ruin everything, start nuking people went on a flim or on a fluke, he is, that position is becoming much harder to hold in your head. But you still believe Trump is monster. That's still part of your identity, is that you're this hero resisting an evil Hitler guy trying to destroy the world. So as there becomes less of a credible argument to make that you are what you believe yourself to be, you start grasping for straws. You're not going to let your whole identity just slip away. That's not the way the human mind works, People, it's nearly impossible to change these deeply held fundamental beliefs instantly. It'll take a period of time, sort of a slow transition with number of justifications, and, you work through the logic in your head till you find a way to logically support what your emotional mind has been telling you for a while. Sure doesn't feel like Hitler. So it's gonna take a while, and some people are starting to do that. Like Sam Harris is, one of the smartest intellectuals, and I think most productive thinkers that is on the scene today, but he got hit with a hard case of Trump derangement syndrome. He was on board with the Trump is Hitler and is going to start just, shooting Mexicans on sight or whatever he thought. And he's starting to come and be like, well, he hasn't done any Hitler stuff yet. So we are starting to see some of the smarter, the more, smarter is not a fair way to put it, but some of the more rationalist, Trump opposers, we're starting to see those people find a way to rationalize not hating him so much. And then the people who are, less circumspect in their logic are just having more emotional outbursts at this point. So that's why it's a fun one. People on both sides of the aisle think Trump is evil and terrible for doing this, but they can't quite say why. Except the Ann Coulters. But alright, that's a fun story. We'll see exactly where it goes. It's, mostly speculative at this point. It's just like it's stage 14 in a 36 stage deal, where you give this, I give that, you're sort of moving along a little bit. It's hard to say exactly what the ramifications of this will be until we see the outcome. But in terms of the public reaction, there's quite a lot to go on. So another thing that's getting some public reaction is this Hillary Clinton new book and book tour. Book, it's about the election, why she lost, and she does say that she made some mistakes, but there's a lot of stuff about the other people who made mistakes. And then, so she did and she's doing a book tour now to go around and promote it, mostly with pretty friendly journalists, like the Anderson Cooper interview, There were not a lot of hard-hitting questions there. And then she went on Today's Show, another outlet that's generally favorable to her party. But in her book, she had specifically called out Matt Lauer because he asked about the emails during some debate or some forum or whatever. And she thought it was crazy that, you mentioned this like in public, that it was just clear evil media bias against Hillary Clinton. Even though, like, I think the recent study that came out was 91% of network media coverage was anti-Trump. But the ones during the campaign were similar numbers. It was always all anti-Trump. But they did talk about Trump more, which is sort of... They did support him in that way, although it does not seem deliberate. They just ran all these articles, blah, blah, Trump is, is responsible for this. Trump is responsible for that. And while you may think that those specific instances are bad things, over a long time you come to think that this Trump guy's pretty fucking powerful. And being a pretty fucking powerful, capable guy who's having all of these major effects on the world, that is one of the things you look for in a president. However often people talk about that. But so, Hillary, one of the claims in her book is that the media was unfairly biased against her, which I think is just laughable, and except in the unintended way. It's like Trump played the media. Like I was just saying, he got the coverage, although they did not try to help him out. But she is claiming that all of the coverage of her email scandals was a bias thing. That it was inappropriate to be questioning her use of that private email server during this presidential campaign. And Matt Lauer had mentioned it in a debate. So she had come down pretty hard on him in the book. And, so in the Super Softball Today Show interview, Matt Lauer alludes to that point. It's like, he mentions, like, you came down pretty hard on me in that book. But let me ask you this. You said there were some self-inflicted wounds, and if it weren't for all of this other stuff, would have those been enough for you to lose the election? And she said no, but didn't really address it, moved on. So, this is just sort of what it feels like. The emotional snapshot, the Family Feud #1 answer for what's going on with Hillary Clinton's book and her tour is that, like, well, yeah, I technically did some stuff wrong, but that wouldn't have mattered if I didn't get fucked by, Matt Lauer, Bernie Sanders, Russia, all the different things. So, it seems to be leaving a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I am seeing some ardent left-wing people come out. There are a lot of headlines just saying, like, Hillary Clinton should not be muzzled. We should have her talking about all this stuff now. Whereas the establishment Democrats seem to be, trending the other way. They think this is not helping them going into the next election cycle. But, so just one quick article I saw there was a Huffington Post one, which said, Hillary supporters do want her to talk. And then, when you read the article, they went to a Hillary Clinton book signing, and they found the people who had been waiting in line since 6 a.m. to come face to face with Hillary Clinton. And they asked those people, like, do you think she should? Yeah, the people were waiting in this line for hours to buy Hillary Clinton's book and have her sign it. And then they were asking her, like, do you think she should be writing this book? And everyone said yes. According to the Huffington Post, every one of those people who had woken up at 3 a.m. to have a chance at meeting Hillary Clinton while they buy her book, every one of those people thought she should have written the book. And they support that she is continuing to put out stuff like the book. So, that is, it's just, insane, crazy partisanship. But what do you expect from this day and age? Okay, one more fun fact from the Hillary Clinton book was she alluded to 1984 and talked about how Trump was questioning the media, was, attacking the credibility of the media, like, CNN is fake news, that type of stuff. And she described this as distorting our view of reality. And it reminded her of 1984 because they, distorted the reality or whatever. But the point was Trump made just as in 1984, Trump made the people have less trust in the media and the government. So, we should have more trust in the media and the government. When obviously the message in 1984 is the opposite. The media and the government are the two most evil and untrustworthy things in that book by a country mile. So, that was, a poor metaphor, I would say. Alright, enough about Hillary. OkCupid now has an option where you can filter your results by whether or not these people support Planned Parenthood. So, that's a tricky one, man. It's this whole thing, the First Amendment only does so much, and it's doing less and less nowadays. The post office is irrelevant now. Like, Facebook and Google control the post office, and they're not bound by the First Amendment. All of the important communications we're doing are done through private companies. So, these private companies are imposing more and more restrictions on, which would be unconstitutional if enacted by the government. So, this is another step in the road where, of course, OkCupid has a legal right to do this, but it's just, so what this is, it's like, I only want to consider dating people who are in my ideological bubble. It's one step towards that. That's just sort of a baby step, one that's hard to disagree with. But eventually, if they had algorithms saying, oh, I only want to date someone who lines up with my ideological tendencies to X amount, that is, they would love to implement that service. And this is just, it has bad effects, it's partisan, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll probably start tweaking the algorithms so that if you have a certain ideology that they agree with, you get more favorable results, or even that if you have an ideology they disagree with, that will come to violate some undefined community standards and have your account removed or blocked or whatever, banned. So, it's just, another step in the scary trend where all speech is happening on channels that are not protected by the First Amendment. And, these fucking dating apps are starting to do it now. So that's getting just one more brick in the road, motherfucker. Alright, so, this is a fun little example on the left eating its own tail, on this idea of the weird, postmodernist social justice warrior philosophy is not built on any one thing. You can make almost any argument fit that structure. And so they have a hard time agreeing on what's not racist. And the example in point is Amazon's series Transparent, which has been widely hailed as this huge, like, step forward for, like, trans people. It's so great. It's, like, heroic that they're doing this. They're winning Emmys for how heroic they are for doing this. But the actor in the lead is Jeffrey Tambor, who's just like a dude. He's not a trans person. So he did some interview where he said he still feels, what is it, not unqualified, but like, whatever. He should not be playing this. Like, he doesn't have the privilege to play. You know, he had some weird fucking wiggle words, meaning that it's inappropriate for him to be for a trans person to be played by someone who's not a trans person. And this is just... So, would they be able to have an Emmy Award winning series with the best, with one of the best actors in television right now, if they only allowed trans people to act that role? Would it have been as successful? I doubt it, because if that opportunity was there, I'm sure they would have taken it. You really think they were auditioning and some really super qualified trans person came in and auditioned for the trans role, and then Jeffrey Tambor came in and they're like about the same, or maybe the trans person's a little better, and they're like, oh no, you are, we liked what you did here, but you're just way too transsexual. We need a cis person to play this role. Obviously they didn't do this. And if the trans person was like significantly worse than Jeffrey Tambor, I think they would have given some leeway. They would have given the benefit of the doubt to that person. So it's just impossible for them to do right by every element of the radical left. So it has sort of an inconsistent, unstable footing on which this whole ideology rests. That's why it's able to always be attacked by some element of itself. It's interesting. Alright, last thing we're going to talk about today is a local Motel 6. Like, not the chain nationally, but like some franchise, 1 or 2 locations were apparently working with ICE. They were like sending a list of all the guest names to ICE, and then they were looking those over, and I think it said they picked up around 20 people, which doesn't seem like a huge number, but it's interesting. So after this news story broke, the national management ordered those guys to stop doing it. Like, oh, I can't believe they were doing it. It's, it's something of a PR black eye, for at least in a lot of circles. But is this inappropriate? I don't know. It's... The notion of deporting someone who is here illegally, is that unethical? I think that is... that's all it is. It's just a fundamental breakdown. It's like, no, if the person's physically in this country, they should be citizens, if they choose to be, versus we should have rules on immigration. It's just, there's like no middle ground between those two. With the exception of DACA. So I think this is a story that there's not going to be a lot of disagreement on. It's not like the Trump DACA deal, where you see all these different factions splitting off and people not knowing what to say. This is something where the Republicans are going to say, they were just helping, law enforcement do its job. And the Democrats are going to say, they're just attacking these people because they're Mexican and they want them dead and eat their babies and stuff. So, that's all. It's just, a more clear, crystal clear, black and white example of that phenomenon we've been seeing now. And it is a good sign of how black and white and partisan we are seeing things. But I'll leave us with this prediction that 3 to 4 months from now, we will not be nearly that partisan. The overall zeitgeist of the country is going to look a lot more like it's reacting to the DACA deal, where people don't know what to think, where they have different positions on different issues and are not entirely towing the party line. I think we're going to see a much more broken up, still widely polarized, but less of a two teams vibe 3 to 4 months from now. So we'll see about that, guys. You have a good one.